Ronnie made me feel like more of a man than most women have ever made me feel.
Ronnie really makes you believe in yourself.
Ronnie's slogan is, do your best and then take a big rest. Done. My girlfriend said she wasn't turned on to me anymore. She said I wasn't warm and cuddly enough. And then she left me for a comic book writer.
Tone it up. Now control drop into your face.
I used to go about my day spending tens, even hundreds of calories doing just regular daily activities like lying down, brushing my teeth, reading a book. Now with the Slob 90X program, I can do these things in a lazy, almost catatonic way.
SLOB stands for slow, lazy, ordinary body. In just 90 days, I can help you become a computer nerd, a party animal, or just a plain old lovable slob.
I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 I'm gonna get myself a modem.
Hello and welcome to Lunch Therapy. I'm your host, Joel Marshall. I seem to be green screening it up today. I got a guest today, wonderful guest. His name is Joe Toplyn. He is a 4-time Emmy Award winning television writer. He wrote this book, Comedy Writing for Late Night Television or Late Night TV, which I highly recommend. Goes through all the details of comedy writing for late night TV and even how to put together a submission packet and get yourself a job. So very excited for that. Stay tuned. Wanted to mention at the top of the show, Dean Lewis, one of our favorite teachers of comedy and comedian from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's doing his 30-day joke writing workshop starting tomorrow, November 1st. What happens is every day you get a different style of joke. You write 3 jokes, you send them back. He critiques them, helps you out, helps you become a better joke writer. You end up with, I don't know, at least 90 jokes at the end of the month. And so check that out. You email him at dean@deanlewiscomedy.com. Dean also is the one who called my attention to Joe Toplyn and his incredible book. So you're already getting some value out of this thing. Why not take it to the next level? Joke writing is for everybody. We're always doing jokes, right? Everybody is. We can use it in speeches. We can use it at work. We can use it if we're an anesthesiologist and we want to relax the patient. Thank you to my Patreons, Howard Aronin, Todd Lee, Kamala Lopez, Liz Lopez, Robert Lopez, Jane Marshall, my own mother, setting a good example there. Jay Patterson, who's in the chat room. Pam Palmieri, Neil Phillip, also known as Niel. Seth Word, the amazing clown, animal clown. A lot of you know who he is. Jason Edelman and Mary Marks. Thank you to all the Patreons. You can go to patreon.com/Joel Marshall and you can become a supporter of live streaming media, because God knows we need it, just like we need air, just like we need breath. Hi, Bob Kirk is here, comedian. Hi, Joel and Mama. I got the book. All right, I'm glad you got the book. There's a link in the show notes to Joe Toplyn's book. It's just wealth of information. It totally changes your viewpoint on writing jokes, and also makes you look at late night television maybe in a different way. It makes me look at my own show in a different way. But right now we're going to breathe before we bring on our guest. And why do we breathe? It's to relax our nervous system. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Bob. Hi, and congratulations on Clean Comedy. Yes, congratulations. I don't know what it is. Did you get your comedy cleaned? Are you in a clean comedy show? Did you win a clean comedy contest? Let us know. Dean Lewis is here. Hi, Joel. I'm very excited about today. Yes, I am too, as you can tell. That's why I better breathe. We better all breathe so we don't pass out. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Todd Lee is here. Todd sent me a something for the show. I think it was some face dancing. As many of you know, I am one of the founders of the fad face dancing. So Todd, send that again. Maybe it'll be on Tuesday's show. Tuesday's show is more of a variety show with a contest where you can win money. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Oh, we got some vibes. Yeah, they're high level. All right, let's bring them down a little bit. Bob Kirk says he won a couple of clean comedy contests 2 months in a row. Thanks for asking. Wow, congratulations to Bob Kirk. That's going to be very useful when you're on late night television doing your set. We'll have to ask our guest about that as well. We didn't really talk about that in the book, I don't think. When the comedians come on, maybe. I'm sure he covers it. Anyway, let's just do a little bit, since it's Halloween. I want to acknowledge that it's Halloween. Let's take a look at some animals eating pumpkins. All right, we have animals from the Oregon Zoo eating pumpkins. This is a rescued black bear chomping on some Halloween pumpkins. Thank you to the Oregon Zoo for their tireless videoing of their animals. One thing we've learned here on the show is that all animals love pumpkins. No matter who you are, whether you're a shark, whether you're a sea otter, whether you're an elephant, just love Smashing Pumpkins. Probably the band too, Smashing Pumpkins. Here's some sea otters, or river otters perhaps. Rascally river otters. Chomping down. Got any grapes? Yes, Todd. They love grapes as well. All right, got to move on. You can check that out at Oregon Zoo on YouTube if you need to get your pumpkin on. Let's get into the show. This is called Lunch Therapy, Interview Friday. I got my desk here today. Something I learned about from Joe's book is that on these late night shows, you got to have a desk. You got to have a desk so you can do your desk pieces. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that later on. But I got myself a desk, so I'm feeling like I'm really in the groove now. And can you zoom in a little bit, Boney? Oh, there we go. Okay. So tell me about Joe Toplyn. I'll tell you what I know about him. He started out as a Harvard engineer. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering and applied science that he turned towards comedy. Strangely enough, he was in something called the Lampoon. Some of us know of this as the National Lampoon. We're going to have to ask him about that because when I was a kid, National Lampoon was like one of our favorite naughty things to read with a flashlight under the covers when we were kids. Also inspired a lot of our favorite movies like Animal House and such. Joe Toplyn is a 4-time Emmy-winning writer who worked on Late Night with David Letterman, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, the hit detective comedy Monk, and many other shows. He also wrote this book, which I told you about earlier. It is Comedy writing. Where is it? I gotta get it on the screen here. Here we go. Okay, of course, Boney doesn't have it ready to go. I don't know why. Maybe he'll get it together. I don't know. Boney is my assistant. Sometimes he gets things right. Oh, there we go. Comedy writing for late night TV. Joe Toplyn. You got to check this out. There's a link in the show notes. Let's get into this interview. This is Interview Friday, Lunch Therapy. There he is.
Hello, Joel.
Thank God you're here, Joe Toplyn. Welcome to Lunch Therapy.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that generous introduction and for mentioning the book. Thank you very much.
I didn't even mention, we're going to mention it eventually, is the app WitScript, but we'll save that for later. We're going to learn about that later on in the show, but I could use a lot of pointers for this show, I think, from you, Joe. But I want to find out, you took a kind of it seems like a strange route to television comedy, but at the same time, it's kind of a traditional route as well, I believe, because you were in that Lampoon Society, which spawned a lot of our late night writers and a lot of our comedians and writers. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that early on in your education?
Sure. I worked very hard. I got into Harvard, and I was at Harvard, and I wanted to take advantage of everything that Harvard had to offer. And at that point, I was just going to classes and studying engineering. And I heard about the Lampoon, and it always seemed like they were a very fun organization. They put out a humor magazine. They pulled pranks, and it seemed like that I would have a lot of fun there, and I would fit in, and maybe I could learn a little bit more about comedy. So I competed. There's a submission process, a competition process, and I was elected. And that's the first time I systematically approached humor and tried to figure out how to write it. And of course, you're with all these other funny people, and you learn tons of tips and techniques from them. And that was my first exposure to kind of formalized comedy. And
How old is that
went from
organization?
there.
And how was it founded?
It was founded in 1876.
Holy crap! You're kidding me.
1876, and which means next year is our 150th anniversary.
Wow.
So
And
so
that's
look for that in news reports and police reports
police
next
report.
year. Yeah, we're
So
gonna have a
were
big
you
event.
were you kind of a trickster, joker kid, or what? What drew you to comedy? That you obviously you learned how to do some serious comedy just to even get into that group.
Yeah, I remember when I was in elementary school, I would make jokes in class, and that, yeah, I got good grades, but I got in a little bit of trouble because I was always kind of making the sarcastic comments, and at that time it was kind of cool to be funny, and I had friends who would read Reader's Digest, and they have those little jokes at the
Oh
bottom,
yeah.
and they'd come in and they'd tell the jokes. So that got to be sort of a way to amuse your classmates and just have fun. So I did that, and eventually I started, I guess, making my own jokes. I remember a friend of mine, this must have been in the fifth grade. He said, "Well, where are you getting your jokes? Like, you want to know? I didn't see these in the Reader's Digest." And so I guess I must have been just ad-libbing wisecracks,
Yeah.
and that was kind of my first uh, making jokes and getting people laugh. My first experience doing that.
Can you explain? Oh, this is not you can't explain this. But will you explain, Boney? Come on now, Boney. Will you explain this? I'm bringing you on here. Hold on a second. Boney's got us all messed up. All right. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this picture. This is from Harvard when you were at school. I believe you're there in the picture.
It's the Where's Waldo of, where is Joe Toplyn? I'm right over John Wayne's. That's his right shoulder. It's the left, if you're looking at it.
Yeah.
That's me riding with John Wayne on the back of an armored personnel carrier through Harvard Square.
Were you just
And it was a
causing
Lampoon-
trouble at the time everybody was protesting the Vietnam War, and here you bring in John Wayne in the military?
We were causing a lot of trouble. Yeah, it was probably the Lampoon prank that got the most exposure around the world. It was a big news event. It came about when we had an opportunity to. I happened to get the phone call. I was in the building at the time, the Lampoon Castle, and we had the opportunity to challenge John Wayne as the Lampoon to premiere his new movie in Harvard Square. And I just thought this was a great idea because, as you mentioned, this was at the tail end of the Vietnam War, and John Wayne was a real conservative and a hawk.
Yeah.
And I thought this is gonna be a lot of fun if we can plunk John Wayne and host him down in the middle of Harvard and invite him to premiere his movie. So about the armored personnel carriers, we knew that John Wayne he agreed to show up. Jim Downey wrote this great challenge letter to him, and he accepted the challenge. And he was going to come to the Lampoon Castle, but then he was going to end up in the Harvard Square Theater to premiere the movie and to do a Q&A. And I was thinking, well, we should really have a fun way to get him from the castle to the Harvard Square Theater. And so my father at the time happened to be in the Army. And I said, can you get us a Jeep? Because John Wayne had been in this movie, The Green Berets. So that was another side of him besides the cowboy stuff, was the military. And my father said, oh, I can get you a tank. So we didn't actually get a tank. We got 2 armored personnel carriers and rode John Wayne into Harvard Square. And there must have been 10,000 people clogging Massachusetts Avenue. And there was some protests, but not many. Most of the crowd was just really having a good time. And we get into the theater. John Wayne did the Q&A. He ad-libbed really funny responses to questions from the audience. And he really won the crowd over, which is pretty surprising because this is Harvard at the end of the Vietnam War. And 2 years before that, I remember looking out my dorm window on Massachusetts Avenue, the same stretch of avenue that John Wayne wound up riding down, and there were police firing tear gas at protesters right outside my window on the same stretch of street. So 2 years later, John Wayne is riding down the street in an armored personnel carrier. So it was a big Lampoon prank. We pranked Harvard into embracing John Wayne. And nobody got killed. Nobody got run over. One concern early on of mine was I was doing research on tanks and how much they weigh. And Harvard Square is over a subway stop.
Oh my God.
So
that would have been horrible.
So it would have been horrible. It would have been horrible.
It would have been horrible.
Thousands die, hundreds die in Lampoon prank as the tank goes crashing into Harvard Square subway. So fortunately, nobody was hurt. We got a lot of great press. The Pentagon was angry at us because people were giving the Pentagon a hard time for allowing the military equipment to be used to promote a movie. But we always looked at it as a great promotional tool for the Army. They get to pull off this tricky publicity stunt and nobody got hurt. And so on balance, I think it was a good investment for the Army.
Now,
for the Lampoon, we had a lot of fun.
The Lampoon, I just recently saw the John Candy documentary, I Like Me. And Conan O'Brien invited, when he was in the Lampoon, he invited John Candy to come I guess once a year you invite some kind of one of your favorite celebrities to come. And he just has a heartwarming story about John Candy and picking him up at the airport. And he shows a picture of Conan O'Brien that John Candy took of him at the Lampoon. Was that a tradition back then where you would bring in your favorite comedians?
Occasionally, yes, the Lampoon would invite celebrities, comedians in to tour the building, to become honorary members. Sometimes there's a little confusion with the Hasty Pudding, which is another Harvard organization. They do theatrical productions, and every year there'd be a Hasty Pudding Man and Woman of the Year, and they would bring in whatever celebrity they could get to agree to come to the Hasty Pudding. So the Lampoon didn't do that formally, but occasionally. And in the case of John Wayne, yeah, we made an exception for John Wayne.
Now, the National Lampoon, is that related to the Lampoon?
Yes, the National Lampoon was founded by 3 Harvard Lampoon members, Doug Kenny, Henry Beard, and Rob Hoffman. They left the Harvard Lampoon, they graduated, and at some point they decided they wanted to start a humor magazine, and they thought it might help to be able to use the name Lampoon. So they licensed the name Lampoon from the Harvard Lampoon and founded the National Lampoon, which, as you said, was very influential to anybody interested in comedy at the time.
I even think of
the
European or Vacation and Animal House. And I think of Animal House. This thing that you did with John Wayne seemes sort of in line with the whole Animal House thing. It's sort of like
cut the cake.
Yeah, exactly. Giant eating cake. I mean, it's just hilarious stuff. So when you got out of Harvard, though, you by then you had an MBA, you had an engineering degree. Were you thinking I'm going to write comedy, or were you thinking I got to get a job and pay for these, pay for school or whatever? I don't know if they had student loans back then, but because you went to work for a dog food company, right?
I did. That was after I got my MBA. Immediately after I graduated from college, I took a job in Israel working for a high fashion leather garment manufacturing company.
Wow, why?
It just sounded like it just sounded like I didn't want to go to law school. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I had a friend who knew the founder and CEO of this leather garment company, who was looking for somebody who had kind of an engineering background to bring in to help automate his production process. And it just sounded just exotic and fun and adventurous. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I lived in Israel for a year and a half, and I hear the news, and I look at the map, and I say, oh yeah, I live there. Or, oh yeah, that was like 20 miles away.
Wow.
And then I worked briefly for an advertising agency in Boston. And then I decided, I think I want to go to business school. I think I need the business school degree. So then I went back to Harvard, got the MBA. Then I worked for General Foods and marketed dog food. Yes.
And when you were marketing dog food, were you writing jingles or writing commercials, or what was your job like there?
That would have been the fun part, but the advertising agencies did that. I was doing trying to figure out how to sell cycle dog food, how to sell more of it. Are we selling enough? Do we drop a coupon? People want their dogs to have glossy coats. Do we add oil to the cycle?
Yeah.
Meat was, it's got to taste like meat. Well, if you put in dye and it looks red, looks like meat, and your poodle vomits on the white carpet, it's going to stain the carpet, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So that appealed to me because in consumer packaged goods, if you're a product manager, you're kind of running a small business within a larger business. You have to think about pricing and packaging and who you're selling to, what do they want, what is going to mean anything to them about your product, why should they buy your product. And years later, I'm realizing there's kind of a lot of similarity between selling dog food and selling a joke, going into a club and you want somebody to do something, you want them to laugh. Uh, how do you do that? What kind of a crowd are you talking to? Know the room. What do they think about current events and politics? Okay, how do you phrase the joke so that they're going to understand it? How do you not bore them? That kind of thing.
I think that this is so great because a lot of times as performers, if we come at it from a performer standpoint, comedy and comedy writing, we don't tend to think that way. We don't tend to think, and a lot of times when people tell me that they're going to major in theater or some kind of art, I always say you should probably double major in business as well, because it's so important to know, the business and know about business, which is something I know nothing about. But this book really kind of helps me kind of think a little bit more about what I'm providing for the audience, whether it be this show or whether it be stand-up comedy or even acting, writing for television, etc., or writing my own sketches. So I think it's actually a really natural progression that you've taken, because you kind of mixed both of these things. So you wrote your first spec script. Did you do this and you wrote it for Heart to Heart, that show way back in the day that was sort of like a married couple that solves crimes?
Exactly. Yes, yeah. It was a light mystery.
And what made you do that? Were you like, I'm going to be a television writer, or were you just doing it for fun, or what happened?
I decided that I wanted to be a television writer. Yeah, I was working for General Foods, and I said, I was learning a lot, but I wanted to be in show business, and I wanted to be a writer. So I wrote a spec Heart to Heart and got it to at the time, the Writers Guild had a list of agents who said they would be willing to read unsolicited material. And so I got somebody off the list and sent it to him. And he said, it's not quite there, but if you're ever in LA, come and let's talk. So that was kind of a little bit of encouragement.
Yeah.
And the next thing I did was I got into the right church, but the wrong pew when I went into show business, working for the vice chairman of the motion picture division of Columbia Pictures. So I did that for about a year.
Did you move from last job I had. New York to Los Angeles at that time, or move out?
No,
west?
That office, the main corporate office, was on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan.
Oh, it was in Manhattan.
So it was in New York. I didn't have to move. I learned a lot about the business side of show business, but I wasn't writing. It was not 100% what I wanted to be doing. But it was fun. I learned a lot. And then I got a call from my friend Jim Downey, from my friend from the Lampoon, who I had worked with on the John Wayne thing. And he, at the time, was head writer for Late Night with David Letterman. Yeah. And he was going to be leaving with a few other writers on the writing staff to go somewhere else. And he didn't want to leave Dave without a writing staff. So he was contacting people he knew who he thought would be a good fit with the show and saying, hey, there's going to be openings here. Why don't you write a submission? So I did, and Dave liked it, and he hired me. And
it's like that.
Columbia Pictures, the head. Well, I worked hard on the submission.
Obviously you did. Did you know, did they tell you like, oh, this is how you write a submission? Did your friend say, like, did he coach you on how to write one? Or did you just kind of come up with an
My friend Jim gave me a couple of tips. He said half of this submission, I think he gave me a page limit or number of pages I should aim for. Half the submission, he said, why don't you write new jokes for pieces the show already does? Mm-hmm. And the other half of the submission would be ideas for new pieces with a few sample jokes for each one of those ideas. And I started watching the show. At the time, consumer VCRs were very new and very expensive, but I didn't want to stay up till 12:30 every night because I had to put on a suit every day and go to a real job.
Yeah.
So I bought a VCR, taped a bunch of shows, watched them, and got a feel for the show for Dave and how he talked and what kind of comedy he did. And I found a couple of pieces I thought I could write jokes for. New gift items was a piece that he did a lot, so I did half a page of new gift items, which are funny props. You say, oh, for people who want to do this, now there's this new prop, and the prop department would build it, and you'd get a laugh. So that's how I figured out what to submit. Was I got a little bit of guidance, and now if you're applying to shows, that's a good first step, is to try and find out what their submission guidelines are. What is the process like? And the process is different for every show. And some of them are more involved than others. So they'll say, okay, write a sample show, and then we'll make cuts, and then you'll do a show on this other topic. And it's like a really involved and labor-intensive process. But it's good to find out what that is.
Yeah.
Instead
And
of
so
just writing
you, in
something
your
and then
book,
sending it in.
you actually talk about like how to find that stuff out, like by actually picking up the phone, as you are here in your office at Letterman. I believe this is at Letterman. You pick up the phone, maybe hold it the right way, but you actually call over there and like find out what they need. Which I think is
that could work. Talk to the person who answers the phone at the production office, and you can know the names of the head writer and maybe the writing assistant, and just try to get put through to somebody who's going to tell you what the submission requirements are. Or if you're in the comedy community and you're networking with other people who are trying to do the same thing and they are generous, they might have heard from their agent. If they have an agent, they might have heard what the process is and pass it on to you. So stay in touch with other people who might know people who know this information. And they'll also tell you, oh, Fallon's staff is reading submissions now, which is hard information to get. They don't announce it anywhere. The best way to get it is just network with people who might know people who know the information.
like yourself.
Oh, I'm way out of the business now.
But has it
Yeah,
changed that
I have
much? Has it really changed that much? The late night television? The structure that you talk about in the book seems to be very much the way it's been for decades. You also talk about how the host is a particular type of person, somebody who is like an everyman, even though they're, or woman, even though they are different in their idiosyncrasies, they are all coming from that same kind of point of view. You talk about a lot of these things Steve Allen came up with. Is that right? The desk
Yes.
piece and the monologue and all the structure that we're all just used to.
Shooting pieces outside the studio, the wacky cast of characters on the show. Yeah, that all came from Steve Allen. Yeah.
So Steve Allen was the original host of the Tonight Show, right? And was he the first host of the Tonight Show?
I believe so, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. So I wonder how he fell into that structure, and I wonder how important it seems it's very important to know the structure of whatever you are writing for, and how to fall into that, and how to. So you've written for late night television, you've written for sitcoms, right?
Yes,
And
a few sitcoms.
Yeah. And then you've also written for procedurals. I mean, Monk is basically a comedic procedural, I suppose. Do you?
Yeah, and that calls
Yeah.
that calls back to we were talking about my Heart to Heart episode.
Yeah.
Which is light mystery. So years later, I actually get to work on a light comedy mystery show. So it was great.
So cool. And you were going to pitch your original script for Heart to Heart with a little modification for Monk, but apparently they had already done a balloon episode. It was about a balloon, right?
It was a parachuting episode, and I
parachuting.
did pitch it on Monk.
I said balloon.
Yeah, we That was an
Parachute.
aerial
Yeah, something
adventure
like that. Yeah.
midair. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I pitched. It was a perfect crime. We like to do perfect crimes on Monk, and Monk has to figure out how did he do it.
Hmm.
And this was one of those. And it turns out they had done a mystery that involved a parachute, so we couldn't do it.
Oh, darn. Can you tell us
But I could.
what the difference is? Like what a day is like for a late night comedy writer as opposed to one who writes for a procedural? What's the difference in those jobs?
Sure. The late night writer will come to the office. Let's see. I'll pick one of my shows. Uh, okay. Well, let's pick Tonight Show with Jay Leno. There was a separate writing staff for the monologue, and another writing staff for what they call the bits, which are the comedy pieces other than the monologue, the sketches, the game, the parodies, the remotes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the monologue staff, that would be basically what they would do all day.
All day,
They
just
would sit in their
that's their
offices.
designated hitters, basically. All they do is write monologue jokes. Is that right?
Yes,
Wow.
news stacks of news reports would get tossed in their office all day. They'd have the TV on to CNN. They'd want to know what's going on in the world, what are the big topics, and that's all they would do is write jokes. When I was one of the head writers over there, I didn't write monologue. I wrote the bits, but whenever I assigned a bit idea to my subset of the writing staff, I would also send it to the monologue writers, and I would try to assign bits that they could contribute to because they were just world-class joke writers. So I would send over pieces that are basically a collection of jokes, a wacky prop piece, a new gift item piece, or a pros and cons comedy piece, pros and cons of whatever the subject is. And so I could take advantage of their joke writing skills on my side of the writing staff and on the bit side. So depending on whether there's something scheduled for the show for the bits, if there isn't, oh boy, you better come up with something fast because there's a show tonight. But usually we schedule the week out pretty tightly, and we knew what we're going to doing that night. If there was any breaking news where you wanted to do a comedy piece about the O.J. Simpson murder trial, somebody would write it in the morning, and then you'd get rehearsal time, and you'd tell props what props you needed, and if you needed actors, you'd have a comedy producer who'd get you the actors. So everything bills to the rehearsal, which is usually around 2 in the afternoon, and then you just rehearse the comedy that's scheduled for that night, excluding the monologue. The whole parallel process on the monologue was all day Jay gets jokes from the writing staff, and he's reading jokes, he's trying them out, he's winnowing them down, and he's putting the monologue for the night together, and it was usually about 30 jokes. So he got hundreds of jokes every day for the monologue. And then around 5 o'clock, I think the Tonight Show shot at 5 o'clock. It's showtime. And I used to get out in the studio just so I could hear the audience reaction with my own ears to the comedy pieces. And
How many jokes do the monologue writers have to come up with every day?
the most prolific joke writer on staff on a good news day where there's lots of meaty news that you can write jokes about, not train crashes or plagues or anything like that, just good news. He could get up to 100 jokes a day. That's unusual. And
100 jokes.
and I asked him, yeah, and I asked
And how
him
many
once, I
writers
said,
are
"Is
there? How many are there? Like for the monologues?
the dedicated monologue staff, 6 or 7
6
maybe.
or 7. Okay.
But that's unusual. And I asked him about it once. I said, I've heard you write, sometimes 100 jokes a day. And he said, well, I didn't say good jokes. So he was being self-deprecating. And
Yeah.
what qualifies as a joke could be just to fill up the page sometimes. I'm not saying that's what he did.
Yeah.
But other writers, I would say 40 jokes maybe,
40.
yeah, 40, 50. Yeah.
Okay, so
A
now
lot of jokes.
we
Just
should talk
it's a
about
volume. It's quantity plus volume. It's quantity plus quality.
a
And
lot of work for Jay too. Was David Letterman like that too, where he would be the final person that would vet the jokes, or was that a different kind of structure?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, but his monologue was a lot shorter. Um,
I see.
and he'd call them opening remarks for a different reason, which had to do with Johnny Carson. But yeah, there were a few joke writers on staff who would basically spend their time writing Dave's monologue, but maybe half a dozen jokes in the monologue or the opening remarks. So most of the staff was writing the other stuff, the other pieces.
Wow, that seems like so. What? How long is your day? Maybe it's a good job. Like maybe it's not a job that is you're like into the wee hours of the night because the show's over at a certain time, even before it airs. So it seems like that's kind of a good job for people. You can stay in the town, you can have a family, you can be home maybe even for dinner. Like that seems like a pretty good job.
Yes, it's as close to a job as show business gets, probably. It's you punch in, you crank out the comedy, and you go home. If the show is well run, if
Yeah.
shows can go through rough patches, in which case the writers you can show up at 9:30 in the morning and get out at 9 at night, and that gets rough. But on a sitcom, if a sitcom isn't well run, you could be there till 4 or 5 in the morning.
Oh my God. Because you're there for
Uh,
rewrites while they're taping the show, right? Well, I guess it's a whole
Usually,
week process because they've just got one show a week. And the whole process of the table read and then
yes,
rewrites and then maybe, I don't know. I don't know how the schedule goes,
and
but
writing stories ahead. Yeah.
oh, and writing
Oh, and
stories ahead. Yeah.
I was going to tell you about the process on Monk.
Yeah.
Monk was written in Summit, New Jersey, and it was shot in Los Angeles.
What?
And that's because Andy Breckman, the creator, wanted to write it in New Jersey, near near where he lived, and USA said, "Okay, but we're going to shoot it in LA," and he said, "Okay." So there was a division of labor where there's a whole production unit out in Los Angeles doing the physical production,
Yeah.
and then the writing the scripts and coming up with the perfect crimes. That was all in Southern New Jersey. So we would get there, well, like 11 o'clock in the morning. And then this is when the show is, yeah, even before the show was in production, 11 in the morning, and you'd leave 6 o'clock at night. And it's a completely different process from late night TV.
Really?
Everybody comes in, you're sitting around the table. There it is.
There you guys are.
That's,
There you
that's
all
the
are.
staff.
That's so cool.
There's ideas for future episodes on those cork boards, funny interesting clues. And somebody would come in with a perfect crime idea. I used to like to do that on the commute down to New Jersey from my home. I would sometimes come up with perfect crime ideas. Just the traveling seemed to loosen up my creative
Yeah.
juices. And so I'd come in and say, "Hey, how about this? This happens, but then this happens," and nobody can figure out. And the writer's room would kick it around, and if it seemed to be promising and generate other scene ideas and seemed to be good for Monk, a little description would get written on a card, and that would be put on the cork board. And then we would start talking about the script we were writing right now. And you'd have a cork board at the head of the table next to Andy, and there would be 4 columns, and each one would have 5 index cards on it. And when the board was full of cards, the script was outlined, and then whoever was assigned to write that script would take the outline and on his or her own time write the script and turn in a writer's draft.
And then everybody has
So
at it, right? Then the rest of the writers then rewrite it.
uh, uh, There
Is
was
that right?
not a lot of rewriting except
Oh,
by Andy.
oh,
Yeah, on some each show
it's
is different.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't. Yeah, so the writer would turn in the script, the writer's draft. That would go out to LA to give them a heads up about, in general, what the episode is about. Are we going to have to lease a cabin cruiser? Or is it
Yeah.
going to take place in outer space? We have to start thinking about this. Meanwhile, Andy does his pass, and so he'll go through the writer's draft and rewrite everything. And then, as I remember, yes, and then the writers get to weigh in on. They read the script. They say, "There's a continuity problem. You said it took 3 days, but then it's only 2 days." Um, and then it goes, and then Andy's script went out to LA. I guess they would get comments at that point. The executives would send comments. Andy would address them. We would all address them in the room. We'd hear, "Oh, they're having a problem with why would Monk do this?" And Andy would either kind of argue to keep it the way it is, or he'd say, "Oh, okay, we'll make this change." And then everybody around the table would suggest different ways to address the problems. And then you'd have a shooting script. And we would also rotate out to be the writer on set in LA. Eventually, there was a writer who lived there, who was the writer who was always on set. That would be David Letterman, right in the middle.
Oh,
But at least 2 or 3 times, yeah, there he is,
yeah.
right over my head.
Yeah.
At least 2 or 3 times, I would be the writer on set, which was a lot of fun.
That must have
It'd be
been
like
fun.
making a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be sitting, you have your own little chair and sitting at Video Village and watching I'd have the headphones on to make sure that the writers were saying the lines accurately enough so that some clue in the dialogue would still be there.
Oh, yeah.
That was the main job of the writer, is to protect the script. So see, if an actor reworded a line to fit the way they would say it, as long as it wasn't going to like hurt the plot or omit something important that you're going to need 2 scenes from now. And it was great just going around different locations.
How was it working with Tony Shalhoub?
Oh, he was just very easy to work with.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy. Very smart, very considerate of the writers. And he was really good at protecting his character too. Like he had this vision of who Monk was, and would Monk do this? Would Monk not do it? And if he thought that this was something that Monk wouldn't do, he would respectfully tell this to Andy, and then Andy and Tony would talk about it, and they would come to a conclusion. But just a pleasure to work with, which is great if you're a writer and a producer on a show like this.
Oh, cool. Okay, now I want to ask you this. Writing jokes. So it seems like there's a lot of pressure to write jokes. You have to write them in a particular way. So you have actual kind of formulas for writing jokes that you've come up with. Maybe out of necessity, maybe it's just common knowledge in the joke writing business. Can you tell us a little bit about what a joke is and what the late night jokes structure is?
When I was working on Monk, I also had the opportunity. Somebody said, "Hey, I know somebody who is running the People's Improv Theater," which was an improv school in Manhattan. And this person, a friend of mine, Dan Dratch on Monk, said he's looking for people to teach. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, that sounds fun. So I talked to Ali Faranakian, who runs the Pit. He said, what would you like to teach? I said, how about a course in comedy writing for late night TV? He said, great. So I had to figure out how to write comedy writing for late night TV. Yeah. And so I prepared a course outline. And I got to the point where I felt that I owed my students a lesson in joke writing. Mm. And so I had never really broken down the process.
You hadn't?
In any formal way. No,
yeah, really?
I had this, how do you write a joke? And I read whatever books I could about how to write a joke.
Yeah.
And a lot of them really didn't really say much about the actual process. You'd read, okay, just I lie on the bed and look at the ceiling, and something funny will pop into my head, and I'll jump up and I'll write it down,
Yeah.
and then I'll try it in a club. It's like, well, wait, you're skipping this whole, like, how do you actually try a joke? How do these monologue writers who I've admired on Tonight Show and the Dave Show, how do they do it? And how am I going to teach my students how to do it?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll have to figure it out. So I just read a ton of late night monologue jokes, and I looked at them, and I asked myself, how did the writer put that punchline together? How was that joke constructed?
Mhm.
So I have an engineering background. I reverse engineered a lot of jokes, and I saw patterns in how the jokes were written, apparently. And I got to 6 patterns. I called them my 6 punchline makers. And
Yeah.
I put them put them in the course outline, figured out how to write the rest of the joke just by studying jokes. And I think that's the first time anybody had ever actually written down step by step. Here's a news story. How do you write a joke about it?
Yeah.
And that course outline became an outline for the book. Eventually, I said, "Oh, other people might like to hear about this stuff who can't come to New York and take the class."
Mhm.
So I put it in a book. So that's a good question. But you're a comic. Are you using these techniques subconsciously when you write a joke?
I think you do. I think you do
Or
at first. I think at first you do because you get up there and you just do it because you have to. And then you notice that people laugh at certain things at first, and you're kind of like, this is the experience of my experience. I noticed that people were laughing at certain things, but I didn't exactly know why. You hear people talk about punchlines and things like that, and you kind of know what a punchline is. But then you start to realize first-time comedians, when they first get up there, a lot of times they're very funny because their point of view is so unique that it surprises the audience over and over again. And the person doesn't know that they're surprising the audience because they're just speaking from their truth. And then they have to write material that is not just speaking from their truth. And that's when you get into kind of trouble. You're like, and then people start to tell you, oh, you need to have so many laughs per minute, And that's when you start to go, okay, what's going on here? So I personally went to people like Greg Dean Lewis, Jerry Corley. These are people that break down comedy structure, and started looking at the mechanics of it. And sometimes you feel like maybe looking at the mechanics of this is going to ruin the magic. And eventually what you do is you kind of put them together, because stand-up comedy writing has become a kind of a hybrid between telling jokes and telling stories lately. It seems to be a little bit more of a hybrid, or that's what's expected. And also different venues expect different things. So you go on tour to comedy clubs, they're going to expect a laugh a minute. If you go into a club around Los Angeles, they're going to expect you to be super personal a lot of times. So what you end up doing is telling your point of view and then finding the jokes in it. That's the way I generally do it, and a lot of my colleagues do. But you have to have that structure to go to know why something's working or something's not working. I also was very wary of joke structure because I remember being in a play one time, and I had a show-stopping laugh that would happen. And I was actually speaking German in the play, and people didn't even know what I was saying. But something that I did made the audience laugh. And somebody backstage said to me, "You know why that joke's funny?" And I was like, "No." And he explained it to me, and it was never as funny again. So that made me kind of wary of like looking at taking things apart like that. But you kind of have to, right? Because you have to have something that you can go to that is technique. That was kind of long-winded, but
yeah. The extreme version of that is I've studied joke structure a lot, and the joke structure and the formulas and the techniques that I figured out work for me and that I put in the book. Eventually, I decided, oh, I can teach a machine how to do that too.
Yeah, so let's hear about
And
that.
and so as large language models start to get more
Yes.
sophisticated, my software got more sophisticated, and now I call it WitScript. It's AI powered software that writes jokes
This is amazing.
that are the sort of jokes that
We got to get to here. Oh, sorry, I muted you. There's sort of jokes that, yeah, go ahead. Continue again.
yeah. So the way I taught my students at the People's Improv Theater to write jokes, I taught an artificial intelligence system to write jokes. And you might say, oh, but are the jokes funny? And my answer is yes, they are. And in fact, I co-wrote a research paper where WitScript wrote jokes. An expert top human comedy writer for one of these late night shows wrote jokes on the same topics. We scrambled the jokes up. We had a professional comic in North Hollywood tell the jokes. We measured the laughter and the decibels and how long the laugh was. We came up with a measure called decibel seconds to measure the quantity of laughter. And you couldn't tell the difference in the laughter produced by the machine written jokes and the professional human written jokes.
Wow.
And these are all cherry picked, of course. The human picked the best jokes on those topics that he wrote, and I picked the best jokes that the WitScript wrote. But that's how comics
So
get the
the
jokes
question
they perform.
is, the question is, or one question is, why can't you just get ChatGPT to do it? Why do you need WitScript?
The answer is that the jokes aren't very funny that you get out of ChatGPT. And people have tried it. There are plenty of articles where somebody has said, oh, ChatGPT isn't funny. AI isn't funny. Look, I asked it to write a joke about, a rabbi and a bartender, and it just said this, and that stinks. And you compare those against the jokes that WitScript turns out when it's turning out its best material, and you say, yeah, I could hear Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon or one of the late night comics delivering that joke and getting a laugh.
Why do you think?
And
why do you think the AI can't write a joke?
Because the AI hasn't been to joke school.
It hasn't been to joke school.
Yeah, you have to, something like ChatGPT, it's read every single joke on the internet. But it hasn't figured out the patterns and the structure of a joke. Whereas what WitScript does, WitScript is a hybrid. It's a hybrid of human comedy writer expertise, meaning the formulas and techniques that I've programmed into WitScript. And it's a hybrid of that and a large language model, which is the artificial intelligence part. So it's basically the difference between a human just getting up in front of a mic at a comedy club and trying to be funny based on what he or she has heard other comics do, and going to a comedy school and learning how to write a joke and saying, oh, okay, put the laugh trigger at the end, keep it short, use plosives like K and hard consonants to punch up the laugh a little bit. WitScript knows all that. So WitScript is an AI that's been to comedy school.
So now the question is this going to take all the jobs away from the comedy writers, or is this something to help the comedy writers?
It'll certainly help comedy writers. I used to, right now I'm writing research papers about WitScript and collaborating with other writers, and I just had to write jokes I had to write 135 jokes for a research paper that was going to analyze the effects of jokes on various things. And that would be a lot of work. And I'd have to, if it were just me, I'd have to spend a lot of time on it. But I have this tool now that can help me, that it basically pitches jokes to you. And some of them are great and you can use them as is. Some of them need a little work. Some of them suggest directions that you could take your joke writing in. And so I'm using this joke writing tool, and I knocked out 135 high quality jokes, and the other authors were happy with them. Do I feel bad about it? No, because it made my job easier. And basically the human is still the ultimate judge of what is funny and what to deliver to the audience.
Mm-hmm. Now,
You're not
if
you're not
anybody
the,
in the chat room wants to give us a premise, which is like a news item, this wit script will write a joke. So feel free to put that in the chat, and we'll put it in wit script and see what it comes up with. In the interim, wit script has its own X account, Twitter type account here, and there's our show on the wit script thing. Yeah, and so basically it's got the jokes. What's the least popular Halloween candy? Candy corn. It tastes like someone described candy over a bad phone connection. So the jokes actually make sense. Sometimes ChatGPT, they give you jokes that doesn't make any sense, but these actually do. Baskin Robbins is offering 31% off all scoops of ice cream on Halloween. So basically it's Black Friday for lactose. I don't know.
it even realized, yeah, lactose. It got
Lactose.
the K, it got the T, lactose.
Yeah.
Alpaca.
So these are generally late night monologue kind of jokes, right?
Yes.
They're
And
news
the
items
reason
or topical jokes, right?
they're topical jokes that they don't have to be topical. They can be evergreen. They can be just conversational. My long-term goal for WitScript is to help cure the problem of human loneliness. And let me
Wow.
explain.
That's a big one.
Global loneliness. People around the world are very lonely. It's a big problem. A lot of different demographics, and people just don't have enough human companionship.
Mm.
So I'm thinking that humanoid robots and chatbots are eventually going to be relied on more to be companions, just to be something you can talk to feel less lonely. And those robots are going to need a sense of humor. And WitScript could be that sense of humor.
Mm.
And if you think about a monologue joke, it's a setup, which is usually not funny,
Mm-hmm.
and then a punchline, which is a funny response to the setup.
Mm-hmm.
So if WitScript has a sense of humor, if WitScript is the sense of humor in a robot, you say something to the robot and it responds with the punchline. It's a way to give the robot a sense of humor that you can see in the conversation, and you feel closer to the robot. You feel less lonely. The robot feels more human-like, and maybe you're happier and you live longer.
All right. Well, I like that.
So
I'm going to put in, somebody in the chat room asked about the government shutdown. I'm going to say the government has been shut down for 100 days.
okay,
Is that good? All right. And let's see what
sure,
it says.
yeah.
Let's see how fast it is too. Oh, possible responses. At this point, the only thing still running is conspiracy theories. Okay, but oh, gotta do the rim shot.
Okay, yeah, so each of the A, B, C, D is WitScript using a different technique for developing a joke candidate,
Oh.
and then the WitScript response is the candidate that it thinks is the funniest, that has the most confidence in. The bottom one, yes.
Okay.
Somebody should just walk up to Capitol Hill and hit Control Alt Delete.
Okay, that was pretty good.
Okay,
that's pretty good. Government shutdown.
And what and what you could do is I'm thinking of the punch up a joke for feature also, but that requires it to be 10 words long. So go up to the top, the green box again.
Okay.
How many words is that? That's 8. If you can add 2 more words to that, and then copy paste it into punch up a joke.
Oh, okay. The American
government was shut down for 100 days.
American.
You're just already maybe. Or so now the American government has been shut down for 100 days. Okay. Now copy paste that into punch up a joke. This is another way you can use WitScript to generate
Oh, okay. Where's the punch up?
material.
Oh, at the top there. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's see it.
yeah. Okay, now paste that in there.
Yeah.
Okay, and now click punch it up.
Punch it up.
The orange button. There you go.
Government.
Okay.
The government has been shut down. Oh, this is so it's punching up. Now, is it punching up
Yeah.
the premise?
Well, normally you'd put a complete joke in there.
Oh, yeah. Let's try that.
But it also works if you just put well, let's look at the second one. The American government was shut down for 100 days. So basically, it's now an unpaid internship.
Okay, so let's try that and punch it up.
Okay, yeah. So punch that one up. The American government was shut down for 100 days. At this point, it qualifies for college credit. I guess it's kind of coasting on the internship.
Yeah.
The American
day
government
now,
shut down for 100 days. So start the grind. Okay, and you could take one of those and feed it into the blue input box again. And so this is, we talked about, can you use it as a writing assistant? And the answer is yeah.
Next week it's launching a masterclass in financial stability. It's going
Basically, it's one GoFundMe away from becoming an influencer. Okay.
God.
So that's how it works.
I love it. I love it. So people can go to WitScript. It's a subscription. I think it's like, what, $5.95 a month?
It's $5.99 a month for unlimited use.
Unlimited use.
Within reason. Unlimited use. Yeah, within reason. If you're a bot and you've been set up to flood the site with millions of inputs, it'll shut you down. But yeah, as many jokes as you want, as much material as you want. So it's basically, you can look at it as you have a little writing staff.
Mm-hmm.
And like any writing staff, you say, okay, here's the topic, pitch me jokes. And it'll pitch you jokes. And some of them will be
amazing. It's amazing.
Spot on. Some of them will be, yeah.
So cool. Okay, we're at the end of the show, but I do want to ask you one other thing. Where do you see the future of late night television? Is it something that is going away, do you think? Or is it something that will be around for a long time?
I think it'll be around for a long time. I think it's a great format for talking about the news of the day in a funny way.
Mm-hmm.
I do think shows are going to have to think more carefully about the business aspect, about doing a show that will pull in enough viewers to pay for the kind of show you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Back when Jay was doing the Tonight Show, we used to get 4 million, 5 million viewers a night. And now the late night shows are getting about half that, maybe, or less. So you either build your audience or you cut your costs. And I think shows will have to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it'll ever evolve away from the structure that it has? Do you think maybe now that people have different attention spans and can consume media in different ways, do you think that structure will start to evolve and because it seems like it hasn't evolved that much?
It's evolved a little bit. Now shows have different formats where they're not doing as many desk pieces. They're doing more issue of the day, talk, and then occasionally throw in a joke.
Mm.
And also, a lot of people, I think, are consuming late night shows in these bite-sized portions. They just watch the clips on YouTube or on the show website. True. So they don't have to watch the whole show. They can get that short attention span taste of what went on in the show. So I think just keep costs in mind and decide, okay, do I want to broaden the material and try to attract a larger audience, or do I give up my band? Seth Meyers used to have an in studio band, and he had to give that up because of budget reasons, I guess.
Oh, really? Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And of course Colbert NBC and CBS and Paramount said yes, he had started losing $40 million a year. Well, that might have been part of it. I'm sure there were other factors involved in canceling the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to think of the show as a business, and somebody's paying the bills, and you have to keep them happy.
Seth Meyers is an interesting one because he spends most of his time at the desk. He doesn't really do a stand-up monologue like that. And he has that closer look, which is sort of like a secondary thing to the monologue, which I guess is, what would you call that? A comedy piece, a desk piece?
Yeah, that's a desk piece, collection of jokes.
Fascinating. I think I got to relook at my structure for my show now that I'm reading this book. When I first started doing lunch therapy, I had no structure, and I had a co-host that was like, "You got to have structure to this thing." So I started adding structure and found that it is actually very useful. But the main thing I need to get is a writer's room. Maybe I'll start with WitScript.
$5.99 a month, you have a writer's room. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Writers Guild. No.
Yeah.
Hire writers. Hire humans.
Hire humans. Well, humans, let's face it, we do have a human perspective on things that ChatGPT might, or even WitScript might not be able to summon. But we don't know where this thing's going. We don't know how big this thing gets. We don't know whether we're going to be subsumed completely. But I like humans. I'm sure Joe does as well.
I do too. Well, another way I look at WitScript is it's not really right now. I don't think it's taking away any writers' jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What it's doing is it's enabling people who otherwise would not be able to come up with their own jokes to come up with jokes.
Yeah.
So somebody who just has a social media account, they want to add jokes to it. They're not going to hire a professional writer. They don't have the money. They don't have the time to learn how to write their own jokes, read my book and practice and get a writers group together and do that sort of thing. So they could use WitScript to come up with jokes that otherwise wouldn't have been in the work.
I think it's very good for people in the workplace that are doing boring PowerPoint presentations to throw some jokes in there. I mean, that just seems like
take a sentence from your PowerPoint, put it in, and see if you could generate an ad lib that you can deliver during your talk.
And also, we look at these different late night comedy hosts. A lot of it is about, their own personalities and the way they deliver the jokes. And writing for them is definitely an art form that I think will always have humans involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we want the human connection. But I think that WitScript can increase human connection for people that maybe their focus is not writing jokes. Their focus is like getting information out. But it can help people pay attention a lot more because we're much more interested in things that make us laugh than things that make us go to sleep. Hey, well, thanks, Joe, for being on the show. This has been super informative.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, it's just been great. Oh, no, I'm glad. Do you ever perform anywhere?
I don't know. Thank you for asking, but there was a point when I was performing occasionally with a group called Comedy Bites, and they were doing AI influenced comedy. Mm-hmm. And I was trying out WitScript comedy. I was trying to figure out a way to present that on stage. And so there was a little audience, and I would occasionally come up with a comedy piece like Ask Alexa or a collection of jokes piece where the jokes were all written by WitScript. But other than that, no, I don't perform. Okay. That's for people like you, people with more guts.
That's right. More guts. You've got guts. You got tons of guts. And you actually have jokes. So I applaud you. I encourage you to get out there. WitScript, that's how you spell it. Somebody, I think Chuck asked in the chat room, witscript.com. Check it out. It's super fun. All right. Thanks for being on the show. Dance break time. Boney, can you call up the dance break? We've got a Halloween themed dance break today. Our favorite, Broken Peach, doing a rendition of a Danny Elfman song. So here we go. La, 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 la. Halloween, everybody. Be safe.
Come with us in USC. There's a ton of Halloween. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. Pumpkin Street in the dead of night. This is Halloween. Everybody make a sweet trick or treat till the neighbor's gonna die of fright. In our town, everybody's screaming the sound of Halloween. Hi, I'm the one, honey, honey, you're big.
My favorite part.
Halloween, 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 Halloween. In this town, we go home. Everyone held to the pumpkin zone.
All right, we'll see you all on Tuesday. Thanks everybody for being here. This has been Lunch Therapy.